system, but I mean, it's kind of necessary considering their securities. It's just, I'm excited about them. I hope to see more STOs, but as the hype of the ICOs kind of dies down a little bit, we move on to something bigger. Hopefully the regulation won't be too strenuous around different jurisdictions.
Yeah, exactly. Like once you mentioned about jurisdictions, it's a whole, it's a whole different challenge. But the reason why personally, I guess a lot of people, in this space are very excited about that. Because basically STOs, so you're able to tokenize any kind of financial asset, global asset. Whether we're talking about debt, whether we're talking about real estate, or most importantly, about equity. So basically the way I see it is that if we're talking about security tokens, so basically it's equity being tokenized. So there are a lot of opportunities down the line, but also a lot of challenges. So it opens a lot of borders and breaks a lot of boundaries in terms of how connected can be different countries and different jurisdictions. There's also a challenge. So I'd like to ask you, so what do you think, especially as a lawyer and as a compliance officer, so what do you think would be the main challenges in building that interconnected, decentralized world where security tokens can be traded freely, and in a very smoothly way, and in a decentralized way as we know it?
Well, you touched on basically the points that are at issue. Now, firstly, securities are very jurisdictional. So every country treats the securities laws differently. For example, everyone knows about the famous Howey test, right? That's the American standard. But it only applies in the US and Canada. Nobody else does it apply to, right? So other countries can take reference to the Howey test, but how the Howey test applies is a common law judgment. So it came from a court in the US. It doesn't apply to any other country around the world. So for example, the Singapore law that would be applicable would be the Securities and Futures Act. Japan has its own civil code. Russia has its own civil code. Russia doesn't have a clear law regarding cryptocurrencies right now. But for example, in Thailand, SEC there governs it under its own law. Malaysia recently said every digital asset is a security token. So okay, now in Malaysia, everything is a security, right? So every single country treats things differently. So that's the biggest challenge in the first place. Meaning that if there is a digital asset, which is a security, that country's laws has to be obeyed by everybody. So I typically have clients coming to me and ask, which laws apply to me? So I'll tell them, whichever country you belong to, your law applies. Whichever country your company belongs to, that country's laws applies. Whichever country your investors buy from, that country's laws applies. Whichever laws you are listed on, which exchange you are on, that law also applies. So basically it covers the whole world. If you are a digital asset issuer and you want to sell to the whole world, every single country's securities laws have to be complied with. So that's the first biggest challenge. Second big challenge regarding this space is KYC, AML, CFT. So every single country also has its own list of sanctioned countries, sanctioned individuals, and every single list has to be complied with. So that's something that the tech people are innovating with. So there are more and more tokens. For example, the ERC 1400 standards, or the ST20, right? That's under one of the exchanges that is doing securities. These compliance tokens are increasingly tracking based on the rules and the laws of that country. So for example, if they onboard all the rules regarding that country's KYC requirements, then they will restrict the onward sale of that token to another investor. So this is something that the tech people can help with the space. So that's an interesting development, but they are still handcuffed. They still have to obey the laws of the country. If the laws of the country change, then the token rules also have to change. So that's a very big challenge. So I would say, to me, these are the two biggest problems. Firstly, which jurisdiction you're from, and every country has a different set of laws. And secondly, compliance issues.
That's actually exactly what I was going to say. So on the compliance side for KYC and understanding like anti-money laundering laws, jurisdictional issues, regulation, just making sure that like you said, whatever country that you're in, you're complying with those laws. That's going to be probably the hardest part, and implementing some type of compliance program into that is also pretty challenging, especially for us, the compliance teams that have to research that, try to figure out the best like user interface for the customer and on the back end as well. So storage, user data, all of those things. So AML and or anti-money laundering, KYC, and regulation by country, jurisdiction.
Yeah, these are great insights. And Malcolm, you've mentioned the how we test. For people who have no idea what how we test. So basically, just a test that the SEC applies to prove whether an asset is a security or utility. So basically the idea is if you invest in a digital asset where you're expecting any kind of profit, it is a security. It's a great. So that's why the SEC has been trying to come after a lot of those ICOs. Because like every digital, every utility token per se is a security. Because all the investors were actually expecting a sort of profit. So that's one thing, but I would like to touch base on the opportunities of security tokens, right? Because we've seen, there was an article saying that the Brooklyn Bridge has been tokenized. A lot of different paintings can be tokenized. A lot of condos, multi-million condos can be tokenized as well. So it brings a lot of financial inclusion, right? So we can, this is what personally I'm really excited about is that I would say that's the main thing about whether SEOs or initial exchange offerings, that it brings that financial inclusion regardless of your demographics, regardless of where you're from. But it gives opportunity to people to contribute to the financial market. So I'd like to start with you, Mali. So what do you think are the opportunities, and where do you think we can take security tokens? And for you as as part of representative of that top exchange, do you think or do you reckon that eventually will shift into operating security tokens? I know that in Asia it's going to be a little bit challenging and difficult, but down the line, do you think is it a thing?
Like I was saying before, I think we're really only at the very beginning of regulation, and you've seen a lot of exchanges be burnt by regulation. I have met people from various exchanges around the world who had an issue with one of their users, and then bam, because of the regulatory pressure the banks are under, the banks close the access to the exchange, and their business model is totally destroyed. So that's why, for example, we don't trade fiat, and that's why we don't do STOs, because you do have to have a very strong command of all of the jurisdictional issues and all of that. So, all of that to say, once all of the regulation becomes clear, then only will we see more financial inclusion. Because it is not clear at all, and it is not a given that that governments are going to turn around and decide that they want to change things up. And you can't spend all your resources trying to become compliant when the regulation might still change. So that is the kind of attitude that we've adopted. I think there is opportunity for some exchanges to work more closely with regulatory bodies. And as time progresses, even more so, because things are becoming more and more clear. I think, for example, in Japan, in Korea, we've definitely seen some of that happen. I think in the EU, we'll see some of that happen. But yeah, I'm guessing 5 years from now, sure. But right now, I think it's a huge gamble.
Okay, I'm going to have a long answer for this. So, the opportunity is great because if you look at the asset classes right now in the world, there are probably 1,000 trillion worth of assets. There are 4 main asset classes and the derivatives of these. There's cash, there's commodities, there's equities, there's real estate. And then there are derivative instruments on top of these, and all of this adds up to about 1,000 trillion. Right? Gold alone is $7.5 to $8 trillion depending on the price. So, digital assets, if digitalization comes about, which I believe will happen over the next 10 to 20 years, definitely every asset class can be digitized. And if you look, let's say, 200 years ago, you went and asked somebody about equity, They will look at you like you're crazy. What the heck is equity, right? So these asset classes, as society grows, as globalization increases, as internationalization increases, more and more things will come about that's widely accepted by everybody. So equities was just an asset class that came up over the last couple of 100 years. And digital assets, I believe, will come up as a new asset class over the next 10 to 20 years. Now, if that happens, then more and more of the country's laws will change to allow this to happen. So the countries that don't allow this to happen will simply be left behind. So to address one micro point about this, for example, if you have a piece of art, it can be fractionalized, but it still depends on the country's laws. So if you want to fractionalize a painting in the US, and if you want to go by an exemption of, let's say, creating a company structure to own that, then you're limited to 20 members only, because that's the US law. If you want to do it in Singapore, you can do it up to 50 members. So just changing countries, you have different numbers of owners that can potentially own that same piece of art. If you go to an offshore country, like let's say Seychelles or Cayman or BVI, then you can create something called IBC, an international business company, which means you can have any number of shareholders. So potentially, you have the same piece of art, you sell it in the US, 20 members, sell it in Singapore, 50 members, sell it in Seychelles, millions of members can actually own a part of that art. So again, this comes back to jurisdictional issues. So there's opportunity, and I think that a lot of governments are struggling with this. But as the space gets clearer and clearer, then digitization of all asset classes will be widely available. And if you look at a lot of the forward-looking institutions right now, for example, BAC just came online last week and caused a crash of price. But with CME, CBOE, BAC now coming in, Fidelity announcing that it's firmly into the cryptocurrency space, into the digital asset space, JP Morgan shifting 180 degrees from no, it's a fraud to yes, we have our own coin, right? We have Walmart coming in, Amazon coming in, Facebook already coming in. So definitely we are moving into an internet age, right? We are moving into a digitalization age. And even social structures and governments will have to change, right? Because of this pressure of technology. So there's huge opportunity, fractionalization of big items of value, property, like Dr. David mentioned earlier. There's NFT technology that you can use to segregate share certificates, real estate parcels, even ownership of art. But again, this has to go back to the law of property in the first place. So, for example, those of you who are married, right? Usually when you buy a property, it's joint tenancy. So something happens, both of you still own it, both of you still have the right to it. But you have another legal structure called a PIC, tenants in common, where if you think something is going to happen, okay, in the first place when you buy a house, you say this part is mine, that part is yours. So anything happens, you know how to segregate it. So then fractionalization through technology can segregate the pieces of equity, the pieces of assets. And I think that's something that's a big opportunity. So to me, the securitization, the digitization of everything will eventually collide, and eventually all asset classes can be digitized, can be fractionalized. So it's just a matter of the law catching up. Right?
I just want to add in from the technology.